Welcome to Lesson 1 in Through the New Testament in Ancient Greek for Absolute Beginners. My name is Helene Istay, and I'll be your guide through the New Testament in its original, beautiful language, the language of ancient Greece, which coincidentally was called Hellenistay. Because each lesson will build on previous lessons, be sure to start here with Lesson 1. This lesson starts at the beginning of the New Testament with Matthew 1, verses 1 through 17, which cover the genealogy of Jesus. In the course of reading this chapter, or these 17 verses, we'll study the 24 Greek letters and how they're pronounced, breathing marks at the beginning of words that begin with a vowel, and accents, which help us understand how to pronounce the different Greek words. Let's start by hearing a section, the very first 2 verses of the New Testament, which begins by talking about Jesus' ancestors. The first word of the book of the New Testament is, appropriately, book. And let me go ahead and read this for you. Biblas geneseos, Jesu Christou, huiou David, huiou Abraham. Abraham egenesen tan Isaac, Isaac de egenesen tan Jacob, Jacob de egenesen tan Judan, kai tous adelphus autou. Now don't worry if you don't understand this yet. I am actually using a screenshot from BibleHub.com. And you can find on BibleHub.com a place where it says Greek. Click on the word Greek, and you'll be able to go to different chapters and books of the New Testament in Greek. You can also go to the Old Testament in Hebrew, but that's a whole different lesson. So I am actually showing you the Bible Hub interface, which is super helpful for showing a rough translation into English. And this should help us as beginners, but you want to try to wean yourself off of this as you get more advanced in your Greek. So thanks, Bible Hub. We'll be showing you more of Bible Hub in coming lessons. And moving on to the 24 Greek letters. All right, I'm going to go ahead and draw these letters as we talk about them. But first I want to sing you the Greek letter song. This is why I have them in 5 rows, and we have 5 letters, then 4 letters, then 6, 5, 4. So they're kind of organized in a way that's easy to remember. I'll go ahead and sing this for you. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. That's the Greek alphabet. Yay! So I'm going to go ahead and draw these letters. Alpha, very similar to our regular letter, capital A. And just like in our alphabet, we have capitals and lower cases, uncials and minuscules. This is pronounced like ah in father or a in hat. Beta has the same form as our capital B when it's in a capitalized form. It also has, it's kind of more of a long B there. And the lowercase b looks like what the beta that you've maybe seen in some math classes in the past. And that's pronounced just like the B in ball, b. Gamma, capital gamma looks a little different. That looks a lot like a hangman game starter or an upside down L. And the lowercase looks kind of like a ribbon that you would wear, but upside down. And that sounds just like the G in gift, but it's always going to be hard G, g, not ever j sound. There is no j sound in Greek. Delta, capital delta, looks like a triangle, which you've seen probably in physics classes. Lowercase delta looks like almost like a lowercase d in our alphabet, but a little bit more curvy. And it sounds just like the D in English, d, den. Epsilon is a short vowel, so it's met, not meet, but met. And it looks just like our capital in its capital form, and lowercase form looks kind of like a backward 3. Zeta is the 6th letter of the Greek alphabet, not the last letter, as many people think. Looks just like our capital Z in its capital form, and it looks like our kind of like an upside down 2. with a little hook on it in its lowercase form. And it sounds just like the Z in zoo or in ads, like the DZ, z, z. Ada looks like a capital H in its capital form. And it looks like almost like an N with a longer second leg. So that's pronounced like the E in they. So that would be a long vowel. They, a. Theta sounds like TH in thin. Capital letter looks just like a capital or a big capital O with a line through it. And the lowercase is usually drawn like that. That's th. Iota looks just like our capital I in its uppercase. And lowercase is like a lowercase I, but no dot. And that's just like I in kit. Sometimes like the I in marine, but mostly an I, short vowel. Kappa sounds just like K, kit. Looks just like our capital K. And then the lowercase is just like a capital, but smaller, squished. So you can see how the tops line up, both the capital letters and the lowercase letters. Lambda sounds like L in let. Uppercase looks like an upside down V, and lowercase looks like kind of like a peace sign. Well, no, not really a peace sign, but like a V, upside down V with a longer, one leg is longer. And then we go on to mu, which looks just like RM in its uppercase form. And in the lowercase form, it kind of looks like a U with a long line at the beginning. That sounds like like mom. Nu, capital, is the same as in our English N. Lowercase is going to confuse you because it looks like a V. So you'll have to get used to seeing this V and thinking N as in net. Xi sounds like the X in taxi, or KS if you wanted to spell it with two letters. So it's kiss. Capital kiss looks like 3 lines, and then lowercase looks a lot like the epsilon, except it has a little Q down. And sometimes you have a little hook right there too. All right, and then we have omicron, which is a short vowel O. Looks just like our O, and I'm not going to go ahead and draw that one because it looks just like our O, but it's like ah in pot. And then we all have the P in pot is by the letter P or pi. Uppercase looks like you're drawing a rectangle but forgot to draw the bottom, and lowercase is what you guys are used to when you're doing math. So that's the letter P. It sounds like P. Rho is another confusing one. It looks like an R. I mean, excuse me, you would think it would be an R, but it looks like a P. So the capital Rho looks like a capital P. Lowercase rho looks a lot like the lowercase p, except it's kind of more curved. And that sounds like in rot. And it's probably got a trill, so you'll often see rough breathing mark before it at the beginning of words. Ch, ro, rot. Sigma, capital sigma, is like an M on its side, and lowercase sigma looks like this, except at the end of the word. When it occurs at the end of the word, it looks like a C with a little hook on it, almost like an S. And that's pronounced just like S. Tau, capital tau, that just looks the same as our capital T. And little tau looks like a capital T but has a little curve under there. And that's pronounced like T, T, and tot. And then we have upsilon, which you would think would be a capital U, but it's actually drawn as a capital Y if it's a capital. And then the lowercase upsilon looks just like a U, a little more curvy. And that's pronounced like U in shoot or in put. Then we have phi, which comes from like the sound phone. The beginning of phone comes from ancient Greek. Sounds like the letter F. And the capital has, whoops, I'm not very good at drawing this. And the lowercase you can draw like that, or you can just do it with a line through it. And that's pronounced f, as in phone. This next one is key, which can also be pronounced key. So just like in Scottish, you have this word loch. It's kind of like loch, like you have to spit. English doesn't have this sound, so we need to go by loch, or German and Dutch have that as well. Just looks like a capital X, and then the lowercase usually looks a little bit curvier, but it's like a k sound, chemical. Psi, just like it sounds, it's like a PS. Ps. like psychology and psychic come from ancient Greek. We would pronounce those psychology and psychic with a PS, both pronounced. It's kind of lost the P over into the translation into English. And then the last letter of the Greek alphabet is omega, which looks like this in the capital form and like a W. But those both have the long O sound, tone, as opposed to pot, tone. Omega will have that long O sound. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next verses and we'll practice that pronunciation. Matthew 1, verses 3 and 4. So, switch over to my highlighter. I'm going to read this now. Judas de egenesen tan phares kai tan zara ek tes tamar. Phares de egenesen tan Hesrom. Hesrom de egenesen tan Aram. Aram de egenesen tan Aminadab. Aminadab de egenesen tan Naason. Naason de egenesen tan Salmon. All right. So let's move on and talk about breathing marks. Our breathing marks tell us whether or not at the beginning of a word, if the word starts with a vowel, whether it has an H sound at the beginning or not. So these smooth breathing marks, let me just grab my pencil, have like a backward C shape. And the rough breathing marks have like the forward C shape. Most breathing marks are going to be smooth. So for example, here you have a smooth with Judas, Judas, no H sound. Egenesen, no H sound at the A. Ek, no H sound. Egenesen again, no H sound. Here we have a rough breathing mark though, and that means we have an H sound. So here it's Hesrom, Hesrom, not Esrom, but Hesrom, Hesrom. And then back again to Egenesen, Aram, Aram, Aminadab, Aminadab. These are all smooth. So for the most part, most words that start with a vowel will be smooth with no H sound, but every once in a while you're going to have this rough breathing mark, which means you have to include the H. All right, so that pretty much is all you need to know about breathing marks. The only other thing is you're going to see them before the letter rho, or the R in Greek, and that will typically be to indicate that you have a trill with that R. And we'll see that in our next verses. All right, so here we are, Matthew 1, 5 through 6. I'm just going to go ahead and read these verses to you now. Salmon de egenisen tan Boes, ek tes Rahab. Now notice there's a rough breathing mark here, so it's Rahab. Boes de egenisen tan Yobed, ek tes Ruth. Another rough breathing mark, so it's Ruth. Yobed de egenisen tan Yesai. Yesai de egenisen tan David, tan Basilea. David de egenisen tan Solomona, ek tes tu Uriu. Nice. All right, moving on to the next one. I'm talking about accents now. So with accents in Greek, they're indicating where you want to put the emphasis in the word, which syllable. And for the most part, you're going to be using the grave accent, the one that's downward sloping, at the end of a word. Not always. Sometimes it'll be acute because it's combining with the next word, but for the most part, it'll be grave. The acute goes on all other accents, sometimes on the last, but usually on the other accents besides the last. And then the circumflex accents are either going to be an arc looking or like a tilde. Some fonts use a tilde, like here. This is a tilde. Other fonts in ancient Greek will have this arc-like shape. All right, so here we have salmon. So you know that that's the last syllable. So salmon, almost like you're going down at the end. Salmon. De. Egenesen. So here you go up on the ge. So egenesen. Tan. Boes. Boes is the first syllable, so it has an acute. Here, this monosyllabic word doesn't have an accent, and that's usually because it's combining with the next one. So ectes, ectes, it's almost like one word. the long vowel here makes it pronounced a little longer. So instead of taste, it's taste. And then again, we have rahab, boeste, egenesen, ton yobed, and so forth. So the accents will really help you understand the pronunciation more than anything else. All right, moving on to Matthew 1, verses 7 and 8. And I'm just going to go ahead and read this and highlight as I read so you can look and see how the accents affect the pronunciation. So here we have the accent at the end. So instead of Solomon or Solomon, it's Solomon, Solomon de. Egenisen tan Roboam. Roboam de egenisen tan Abia. Abia de egenisen tan Asaph. Asaph de egenisen tan Josaphat. Josaphat de egenisen tan Joram. Joram de egenisen tan Ozian. Nice. All right, so going on to the next page, we have Ozias de egenisen tan Joatham. Joatham de egenisen tan Ahaz. Excuse me, Ahaz, Ahaz. Ahaz de egenisen tan Ezekian. Hezekias de egenisen tan Manasseh. Manasses de egenisen tan Amos. Amos de egenisen tan Josian. Notice here it's Hezekias, Hezekian, because it's a rough breathing mark, whereas Josian is a smooth breathing mark, no H there. All right, and we have Matthew 11 and 12, starting with Josias de egenisen tan Jokonian, Kaitus adelphus autu. Notice it's not adelphus, it's adelphus. Epi tes metoikesias Babylonas. Meta de ten metoikesian Babylonas. Jokonias egenisen tan Salathiel. Salathiel de egenisen tan Zorobabel. Zorobabel de egenisen tan Abiud. Abiud de egenisen tan Eliakim. Eliakim de egenisen tan Azor. Azor de egenisen tan Zadok. Zadok de egenisen tan Achim. Achim de egenisen tan Eliud. Nice. All right, we just have 3 more verses and then we'll be done for the day. So hang in there with me. Next verse, verse 15, we have Eliud de egenisen tan Eleazar. Eleazar de egenisen tan Matan. Matan de egenisen tan Jacob. Jacob de egenisen tan Yosef. Tan Andra Marias. Ex heis, notice the rough breathing mark here, heis. Egenethe Jesus ha legamenas Christas. Beautiful. And one last slide, and we'll be done for this lesson. All right, Matthew 1, verse 17. Pasai un hai genai apo Abraham heos David geneai decatesseres. Kai apo David heos tes metoikesias Babylonas geneai decatesseres. Kai apo tes metoikesias Babylonas heos tu Christu geneai decatesseres. All right. So you can see how helpful it is to know where to put the accent on the words that you're doing. This pretty much finishes up our first lesson. We learned the Greek alphabet and its pronunciation. We learned about breathing marks and we learned about accents. And we also read the first 17 verses of the New Testament. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.